This week, you granted ABC and George Stephanopoulos great access. You spent a couple of days with them. And one of the sound bites that they ran over the last 48 hours is essentially you say there is nothing wrong, in your estimation, with accepting dirt from Russia or any foreign country. You've taken a lot of heat from the Democrats regarding that since then.
I don't say that. I think it was accurately stated, and I've had a lot of support.
Well, then clarify it.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of support. First of all, I don't think anybody would present me with anything bad because they know how much I love this country. Nobody's going to present me with anything bad. Number two, if I was, and of course you have to look at it because if you don't look at it, you're not going to know if it's bad. How are you going to know if it's bad? But of course you give it to the FBI or report it to the Attorney General or somebody like that. But of course you do that. You couldn't have that happen with our country, and everybody understands that. And I thought it was made clear. In fact, I actually said at the beginning, I think I said I'd do both. But how are you going to, if you don't hear what it is, you're not going to know what it is. I mean, how can you report something?
How do you know it's bad if you don't listen to it?
So, Mr. President,
no, they say, oh, he would accept it. Well, if I don't listen, you're not going to know. Now, if I thought anything was incorrect or badly stated, I'd report it to the Attorney General, the FBI. I'd report it to law enforcement. Absolutely. One thing that's different with the president, I had dinner with the Queen. I met with the Prime Minister of the UK. I was with the head of France. I was with the head of all these nations, and I constantly am talking to them. And, you know, that puts us in a different, we have many, many conversations. And I'm just thinking, gee, if they say, we don't like your opponent, am I supposed to put, the president of France, am I supposed to report him to the FBI?
Here we have Fox and Friends doing Trump's bidding by gently guiding him out of the deep end with regard to his open invitation for any foreign power to once again collude with his campaign against a Democratic opponent in 2020. And right off the bat, probably Trump's most egregious claim is that no one would dare present him with damaging information because they know just how much he loves the country. The same guy whose campaign took a meeting with Trump Tower with a Kremlin-linked lawyer because she promised dirt on Hillary Clinton. The same guy whose national security advisor discussed sanctions with the Russian ambassador. The same guy whose campaign manager shared polling data with Konstantin Kilimnik, who has ties to Moscow. The same guy who touted WikiLeaks on the campaign trail dozens of times after they released Hillary Clinton's emails. The same guy who went on national television and literally asked Russia for help hacking into those emails.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press.
And they did just that only hours later. Yeah, this is the guy who's not looking to even entertain the idea of foreign assistance in an election. Got it. He goes on to say, of course you give it to the FBI. And it's ironic that he frames it as a given considering he didn't bring anything to the FBI while his campaign in Russia were cooperating leading up to the 2016 election. In fact, when the FBI opened up an investigation into exactly that, Trump fired FBI Director James Comey. And then he told the Russian officials at the White House, I faced great pressure because of Russia. That's taken off. So to claim then that of course, absolutely, he'd notify the FBI first and foremost of any attempts to offer damaging information or interfere in our election is utter BS. He literally already had a chance to show what he'd do, and his actions speak leagues louder than his empty words. And then in his most bad faith move of all, Trump reiterates this idea that if he has lunch with the Queen or meets with the French president, he'll have to report them to the FBI. This is a regurgitation of his tweet in which he said that he talks to foreign governments every day, that he just met with the Queen of England, the Prince of Wales, the Prime Minister of the UK, of France, of Poland. Should he immediately call the FBI about these meetings? And look, if you hear this defense and don't push back, then you are either a partisan hack or you shouldn't be operating heavy machinery. Because I cannot believe I have to say this, but Trump is purposefully conflating having regular conversations with heads of state and seeking dirt on political opponents. A meeting with the Queen isn't regulated speech, but seeking dirt on a Democrat ahead of the election is. Candidates are barred from accepting or seeking anything of value from foreigners, and dirt on a political opponent is a thing of value. And he obviously knows the difference. He just knows that A, he won't get any pushback from his mouthpieces at Fox and Friends, and B, this is what he does. He gaslights. And everyone knew that when he spoke with ABC's George Stephanopoulos and said outright that he'd be willing to accept dirt from a foreign entity against a political opponent.
Your campaign this time around, if foreigners, if Russia, if China, if someone else offers you information on an opponent, should they accept it or should they call the FBI?
I think maybe you do both. I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening. If somebody called from a country, Norway, we have information on your opponent. Oh, I think I'd want to hear it.
You want that kind of interference in our elections?
It's not an interference. They have information. I think I'd take it. If I thought there was something wrong, I'd go maybe to the FBI if I thought there was something wrong. But when somebody comes up with Oppo research, right? They come up with Oppo research. Oh, let's call the FBI. The FBI doesn't have enough agents to take care of it. But you go and talk honestly to congressmen. They all do it, they always have. And that's the way it is. It's called Oppo research.
That eventually he'd turn around and backtrack and hedge his statement to say, of course I'd alert the FBI first thing out of the gate. And Fox and Friends lets him do it, as opposed to having even a modicum of journalistic integrity on a network that poses as a legitimate news outlet, as opposed to just an unaccountable right-wing propaganda machine. And as long as they continue to carry water for him, he'll continue to use them to backtrack even more, until eventually he comes out and says that nope, he never said he'd be willing to accept help from a foreign government. Because the number one rule for a gaslighter is to convince you that
what you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening.